Welcome to our webinar on empowering your distributed CX teams with AI and knowledge. My name's Yael McCue. I'm the lead implementation strategist at Guru, which is just a fancy way of saying that I help people get started with Guru. In doing that, I help a lot of people work with Guru and Freshworks products. So I'm really excited today to be joined by Pranay Desai from Freshworks. Hi, Pranay.
Hi, Yael. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for the introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm Pranay, and I lead our enterprise marketing efforts over at Freshworks. I also started my life in business operations, where I helped on a lot of customer support initiatives, including rolling out live chat, transitioning to serving customers across multiple products, and excited to be here with Yael.
Awesome. So everybody, today we're going to cover some challenges when transitioning to remote work. We're going to give you tips on how to cut out noise and deliver better customer experiences, and some advice on how to identify pain points and opportunities for growth. We're going to end the session with one piece of advice each for support managers moving forward. If you have questions along the way, please feel free to submit them during the webinar in the Q&A box. We will answer all of them at the end during the Q&A portion of this webinar. So to get started, let's just quickly introduce our products, the reason that we're here today, who's sponsoring this webinar. Guru, the company that I work for, is a collaborative knowledge management solution. We believe that the knowledge that you need to do your job should find you wherever you're working. So we integrate with every tool that you are in, including Freshworks tools like Freshdesk and Freshchat.
Awesome. And from Freshworks. So for those of you who don't know, Freshworks is a unified customer engagement platform. So if you want to engage better with customers across marketing, sales, and customer service, backed by unified customer data, that's what we are building towards. And a lot of you might know us for Freshdesk, which is our flagship customer support software. We also have other products in live chat and telephony as well. All right, so I think before we go ahead, Yael, any tips for people who are transitioning into remote work?
Yeah, I know it can be really hard to transition to remote work because one of the big things that you lose is the inter-office culture, talking with each other within the office about what's going on or getting a drink together after work. So my team has actually started to do remote happy hours where, here's an example, where we put the background of our favorite place to go get a beer after work and just sit around and talk with each other on a Friday afternoon in a purely social setting. And you can see in the bottom corner here, one of our coworkers had his dog on the call as well. What about you, Pranay?
Yeah. That's awesome. I think for me, obviously we have off-topic Slack channels, but I think most of my team are young and used to not cooking and buying food or eating in the office. So we've set up a cooking channel where all of us are sharing easy to make home recipes and along with like pictures and just keeping the challenge running across the board.
Oh, yum. You got to share some of those recipes with me later. I'm definitely experiencing that myself. So let's get into some of the content here. What are some of the biggest challenges that you're seeing with support in a fully distributed context?
Yeah, good question. So I think we are seeing two things which are really at odds with each other. So one is a lot of companies are working with reduced workforce or limited workforce, given people can't get into the office and work over there, or they might be at home taking care of their kids. And on the other hand, we are seeing that a lot of phone lines are backed up, usually with anxious customers who are trying to figure out what happened to their last order or whether they're going to be able to get on that flight, right? So there's a big mismatch between the available workforce in terms of the supply in contact center agents and the demand that customers are facing on these organizations, right? And a few very cool ways of how we've seen companies get this right is a lot of them are really routing these customers from phone to live chat. I think if you see on the screen, like you can also implement this in your IVR workflows where when people are waiting in the queue, you can give them an option to, hey, press 1 to initiate a chat, and you can send them a text message or a message on Apple Business Chat to continue the conversation. Even if people are searching for your phone number on Google, they can, you can have a pop-up on iPhones to message on Apple Business Chat. It's a very good Discover Financial has done. We also see that 70% of the customers actually pick chat over a phone call, right? The other interest to solve on the supply side and the available agent bandwidth is the first line of defense has become AI and chatbot. So you can solve the basic how to queries, the where's my order, what's the update, and share updated information with customers and bring agents in to solve complex and urgent issues where needed, right? So it's a great way to match supply and demand in current times.
Yeah, I understand that. I've experienced that pain point myself of not wanting to call and wanting to chat instead. So I get that. Something that I noticed too is that nowadays your team members aren't going to be all on the same schedule. People are going to be working across the globe in very distributed ways. The thing is, your customer still wants the same experience no matter where you are. So the real problem comes when we get so focused on small tasks internally that we're not prioritizing unifying that whole customer experience across whatever we're working on. We end up wasting a lot of time with tasks that could be automated. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to record the knowledge of the things that we're working on and share it with each other and use AI to automate out some of those repetitive tasks.
Yeah, I think I totally relate. As a distributor ourselves, we are working across, as our CEO says, now we have 3,000 virtual offices because everyone's working from home. So completely understand and relate to that problem.
Yeah.
I think there's also a lot of companies kind of being adapting and changing with almost daily. So any tips and advice on how you can ensure that your support team, which is really the front line dealing with all customers, are up to date with everything that's going on across the products, across the company, and generally all the decisions across the organization?
Yeah, this is a great question. This is something that I think about a lot, especially in this new world that we're in today. My biggest piece of advice is that you shouldn't be afraid to over-communicate. A lot of times people associate over-communication with micromanagement, but it doesn't have to be that way. If you are over-communicating because your team knows that you're doing so for their benefit, they won't see it as a bad thing. So I recommend that you look at all the channels that your team communicates in and think about how to reach out in each one of them. So that could be a combination of emails, if your team uses internal email, messages on Slack or Microsoft Teams, whichever one you use, one-on-one communication from your managers and leads. And if you use Guru, we have a feature called Knowledge Alert, where you can put knowledge right in front of people when they're in Guru. So here's a view of it in the web app. You can see that right under Maria's name there, she has a knowledge alert. She has a card to look at. But this also carries through into our extension. So if you're working in Freshdesk, you're able to see that knowledge alert the first time that you open the extension over Freshdesk. What about you? What do you think that people should be doing?
Yeah, I think the knowledge and over communication is super valid. I think it's also important to differentiate between fast communication and slow and asynchronous communication. I think while everyone's working from home, you also want to respect boundaries and not send them Slack messages. But I think beyond that, when I say slow communication, I mean if it's bigger decisions that need wider distribution across multiple teams, I think that knowledge has to be more permanent, whether it's kind of company-wide emails or emails to broader groups or updates like this. I think that's it's important to keep that documentation in place because I think very often one thing you miss from the office is that tap on the shoulder, right? Or you can shout something out across the cubicle or across the office and just get an answer, right? So I think that documentation is important.
Yeah, that's totally true. That actually was really well into my next question here. We used to have a problem with noise in the contact center environment of everybody trying to shoulder tap each other and talk to each other, and now we're seeing that same noise can be possible within Slack or within people getting too many different kinds of information. So, what are some thoughts that you have on how to cut out noise for your customer experience agents so that they can focus on the customer?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think when you think about this, I think agents don't have that access to tribal knowledge. They are all working from home. So you have to make them as independent as possible and as effective as possible, right? So when I talk about independence, I think ideally you want them to have all the ammunition they need to solve a customer problem, right? And these customers, I think these days, like we saw earlier, right? Phone lines are overloaded. Reach out on live chat. If a customer is pissed off, they might tweet at your company handle, which becomes an urgent interaction. But it's important to recognize that this is the same person. So I think all customer information should be available in a single screen. So it can mean all your communications, all their website activities. It can mean what is their past order or their past transaction with you as a company, so that you have all the information required to kind of effectively address and solve the customer problem, right? If he's gone through your knowledge articles before reaching out to you, you don't want to send that same knowledge article back to him.
Right.
So having all customer information, the interactions, the conversations, the orders in one place is very important. I think the second one was around effectiveness. So I think you want, I often think in the old days or with a lot of legacy software, agents work for the tool does not really work for the agent, because something happens and agents work on entering data, entering tasks, classifying tickets, just so that a manager can report. I think the tool should work for you. Right. So I think when you think about the support workflow, as soon as a query comes in, the agent has to first quickly basically classify it as kind of what category of ticket is it? Is it L1, L2, or L3? Is it a simple how-to? Is it a billing request? Or is it a product bug that has to be passed on to a technical team? So I think that data entry can be automated to a large degree, and within Freshdesk, I think we have AI across the product working in the background, which requires no setup, so it's very cool. But Freshdesk can automatically classify these ticket categories based on your operating data and the text within the tickets. The next thing would be even things like automatically suggesting answers or suggesting solutions to agents is important, so they can find the next best action. I think the third thing is even when you send out a response, sometimes a customer might reply with a thank you, which reopens a ticket. All the agents have to keep monitoring queues and close those out. Otherwise, it affects their metrics. So even small things like detecting thank you messages and closing them out are some things that we do with the help of AI to make teams more productive, so they can focus on customer interactions and really sending effective responses and solving customer problems, and not on kind of the other manual and repetitive tasks that happen behind the scenes.
Yeah, when you talk about that, those thank yous reopening your tickets, I'm getting horrifying flashbacks from my years as a customer support agent. My first contact resolution being affected by those thank you tickets. Ooh, I hated it. Yeah, as much as possible, I agree. You got to keep agents working out of one screen, right? And so even if you're in a situation that's more complex, that is going to require a few more touches on it, you don't want people to open up a million tabs to go research everything that they need. A lot of times people are now at home and just working on a laptop. They might not have the double monitor setup that they had back at the office anymore. And so the more that you can just keep them in this view is going to be the best for them. So that's why Guru has AI Suggest for those questions that can't be automated out with a knowledge article, something that's going to require deeper troubleshooting steps or questions. Guru can read the content of the ticket and suggest that internal knowledge that's going to help the agent get through the rest of what they're doing so that they don't even have to search. So this will allow them to just get into the issue right now, not have to worry about all the other stuff, and just focus on helping the customer. And I think whether or not you use Guru or a Freshdesk product, it's so important to just cut out clicks for your agents and make sure that they can avoid context switching and stay in one view of everything that they're doing.
Yeah. And I think another interesting challenge, Yael, is I think it's not really about kind of being micromanagerial as such, but I think a lot of customer support kind of team leads and managers who are used to mentoring kind of support agents, like coaching on the job, are not able to have that face time, right? They're not able to look into interactions. They're not able to kind of sit in on calls and help with real-time coaching and feedback. So how do those kind of evolve with this kind of distributed concept? What kind of suggestions and advice do you have for all the team leads out there?
Yeah, that's a great point. You can't just walk the floor anymore to observe your agents. You can't just check into somebody to see if there's a problem. I say that you shouldn't even wait for an agent to tell you that there's a problem. Get proactive. Get into the analytics of the tools that you have available to see if there can be a problem ahead of time. Get ahead of it. For example, with Guru's analytics, you can observe how all of your support agents are interacting with knowledge on a day-to-day basis, what cards they're accessing the most. And what we find is that if somebody has been consistently looking at troubleshooting tips and help center articles, and then one day they drop off, that could be a sign of burnout. That could be a sign that the person is just now mindlessly going through tickets and sending single unedited macros and not digging deeper with the customer anymore. They might feel disaffected from their job now. So that could be a real opportunity for you to step in and coach and figure out what's wrong with them. There's lots of ways that you can just look at the numbers as a whole, and from that, create some questions to ask your agents to help coach them further. Now that we're in this digital world, they can't just raise their hand and tell you. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's true. So we've actually seen, I think I also saw this on Google Trends. If you see the Google Trends for dashboard, the number has gone up. I think every manager needs a dashboard. But I think beyond that, another interesting thing we've seen is that kind of while you have the basic kind of metrics available to monitor team performance, which is like the number of tickets you resolve, what kind of response time and resolution time you have, I think there's other interesting insights specific to coaching needs. So you could look at how many times an agent reassigns a ticket and what categories of tickets those are. You can also look at how what tickets are being reopened by customers and try to understand what categories are they from or which specific agent is having a lot of reopens. I think that is a good way to inform kind of where they have a knowledge gap and where there are coaching needs with agents, right? I think that's one way to think of individual performance. And when I think about like the support organization as a whole, I think there are kind of process bottlenecks that we need to continue solving as a support organization. And what's really happened today is that collaboration is now a part of the core support workflow, right? When I say this, what's really happening is your support team is the first line of defense, but everyone across the organization is basically serving the customers, right? Because you might be hit with pricing questions that you pass on to sales. There might be billing issues. There might be product bugs where you need to bring in engineering and technical teams to solve for those. So there's a wide variety of kind of customer inquiries coming in, and support is the one held responsible for the ultimate outcome, but there's a lot of teams involved in the process, right? So we also analyze our ticket lifecycle report. So this basically tells you kind of the life of a support ticket, which teams has it passed through, how much time is each team internally taking in responding to these, or if there's a particular ticket which is bouncing back and forth between two teams, so because there's no clarity. I think finding those root causes and eliminating those bottlenecks can improve the overall support process, right? It's another interesting way to think about data.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree there.
Great. And I think what's your advice for all the support managers out there who are dealing with this?
Yeah, I know that things can feel a little overwhelming right now. And we've been talking up to this point about very high level, very, very big picture things to think about with your team. And if that ever gets overwhelming or hard for you, just remember to take this one customer interaction at a time. The problem seems immense, but the only way that we're going to get through it is by solving tickets, answering chats, and picking up the phone when our customers call, right? You know that you are good at this work, so trust your team's ability to get through this, and you will. What do you think, Pranay? What's one piece of advice you'd give to support managers?
Yeah. I think I'm going to go back to the macro, but I think this is not business as usual. This is unusual times, unusual, and I think most customers understand that. I think they are looking for an answer more than anything that can solve their questions, but we are all in this together. So I think being proactive and empathetic are the two things that I would advise everyone to practice. I think when I say being empathetic, it's obviously being empathetic about the times and not being insensitive in any communication. When I say be proactive, I mean it's about resetting expectations with customers, right? I know all of us have heard the term the new normal. We have our marketing drinking game where every time you get an email that says the new normal, you have to drink a shot of your choice. But I think we need to explain to customers the new normal, right? If your kind of store opening hours are different, if your support SLAs are changing, if you just need to reset expectations with customers, and that will solve half the problem, right? Because I think as long as they know what to expect, they are fine, and it helps address that anxiety. So I think being proactive and being empathetic is my advice at the highest level.
Yeah, I fully agree that proactivity and empathy are core to any support interaction. And so keeping that same ethos in everything you do is going to be huge. With that in mind, we want to express, Pranay and I both want to express here that we know that you might be going through a difficult time. Your team might be facing a lot of challenges right now. And we want to take this time to help you. Guru, for example, has a starter plan that is completely free forever for up to 10 users. But if your team has more than 10 users, we're going to have an option where you can try Guru out for free for 3 months. So we'll give you more information about that in the email to follow. Pranay, I know Freshworks has some offers also.
Yeah, so I think we've seen that like through this crisis, I think small businesses are the ones who are suffering the most. So we wanted to do something that can help every small business evolve. So I think they need to switch to online engagement if they are shuttering their physical storefront. They need to replace their desk phones with like cloud telephony systems and do all of this in days, not even weeks or months. So for that, we've launched a Freshworks small business continuity offer. So we are giving away 2 customer engagement tools, Fresh Chat for kind of live chat and engagement on your website, mobile app, and Apple Business Chat, as well as Fresh Caller, which is our cloud telephony system that can be deployed in days. These 2 products are free for every small business for the next 6 months. So if you're a small business that needs to switch to cloud telephony or engage with your customers online instead of offline, you should take a look at this.
Great. So you can try out Guru and Freshworks for free, which is really fantastic. If you need it right now, definitely take advantage of that. We will be sending out our remote work resources with both of these offers in an email after this webinar. So stay tuned for that. And with that, we'd like to move into the Q&A section. To start it out, we have a poll for you. So I just launched the poll. If you'd please just fill out here. I've got 3 of them for you all together. Great. I'm going to end this one and move to the next poll. Does AI play a role in managing and optimizing your processes today? Take a second to answer that. Thank you for sharing. Looks like for most of you, you don't. And the last poll, would you like a personalized demo of our products? Let us know here so that we can follow up with you. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A. I'll start answering, Pranay and I'll start answering those in just a second here. All right, thanks for participating in the poll, everyone. I'm gonna end that. Let's move into some questions. Looks like we have a few coming in here. How do you handle new support agent onboarding in a fully remote environment? Pranay, you want to start with that one?
Yep. So I think this is, I'll be honest, it's a hard one. New agent onboarding or new employee onboarding in general is not very easy in a remote environment. But what we typically do is anytime we have an agent joining our team, it's relatively easier for us because there's 2 sides to the efforts, right? There's learning about our business and learning about our support processes. The convenient thing for us is that they're learning how to use Freshdesk while using Freshdesk for managing customers themselves, right? So both things happen hand in hand. But typically what we try to do is expose them to understanding the business, understanding the product so they can effectively serve customers. So we do kind of 1 to 2 hours a day of active learning sessions followed by assignments, right? These so our support agents are expected over the course of 1 week to basically set up their own Freshdesk account, create a mock website, set up live chat, set up business hours, groups, agent roles, all of that, and essentially handle their own email communications with the rest of the team on Freshdesk. So just that hands-on experience of setting up the product kind of gets them well ingrained with this. And alongside that, we also start getting them on board with the processes. So when I speak about that, what I mean is we start sending them the simple questions. So simpler queries, which can be around like pricing issues, billing issues, like cancellations and refunds. We get them up to speed on those so that they have a fast start and they also feel like they are a part of the team and they are working as one squad.
Yeah, I agree. I think that giving people knowledge that they can self-guide themselves through is really important from day one. Just give them a kind of learning environment where they can move through on their own. And then, like you said, having them start with very simple questions, I think is a great way to begin. These days, there is a lot of remote monitoring software that you can use. You can record calls, you can sit live with somebody on a Zoom conversation. So there are ways to help a new agent when they're in a remote support environment. But I agree, it's really hard. It's very difficult. Our next question is, how are you doing in the education vertical? Are they demanding these products? I'll speak to the Guru side. We do have a couple of customers in the education space, especially in the digital learning environment. We find that a lot of people still need that knowledge to do their jobs internally when helping students get into online schools or coaching people through their educational process. I definitely have seen some value provided to customers with Guru in the education space there. Pranay, what about you?
Yeah, interestingly, we've seen a lot of things coming in from the education sector as well. I think it speaks to what you said. I think a lot of campuses have also moved to kind of this remote learning environment. So the requests we are getting are kind of interesting because they're not traditionally customer support, but they might be IT teams, facilities teams, internal folks, right? Because if you think about a university with like, what have you, like 20,000, 30,000 students, and they have like faculty, staff, like all the teachers who are running these classrooms from their homes, if they have an issue like with the internet or with their Zoom account, they need to very quickly reach out to IT and fix it before the class can go live. Or if they have trouble with their laptops, they're reaching out to these central teams. So I think a lot of campus teams who internally serve students have been asking for a very quick setup of a help desk, right? If you think about libraries, right? So even libraries have like a lot of kind of catalogs of like PDFs, ebooks, and learning material, course material for students. So if you need to run a library remotely, what would you do, right? You need a way to entertain requests and give a response, and basically assign, track, and manage, resolve, and close every query very effectively. So it's somewhat different from the traditional company who have external consumers, but yeah, it's been interesting for us.
Yeah, I see the same thing, that it's a lot of back end teams, like I said, but haven't yet had somebody like a college professor put a syllabus in Guru yet to deliver to their customers. But if somebody on this webinar wants to be the first to do that, I'm happy to help you get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah. Next question I see here: what are some of the most creative or innovative changes you've seen to teams implementing to quickly adjust to being distributed or remote? One thing that I found last week, I heard in another customer of ours talking about, was that they normally are all in a contact center, and they can see when all of the support agents come in and sit down for the day. And they still use their same clock-in software that they were using before, their same like timekeeping software for hours, but they still wanted that experience of, we're all in the office today and we're ready to go, or we're signing off for the day. So in Slack, they would just have a little hand emoji, or they started to get creative and use like a unicorn emoji or a rocket ship or something like that. Just like send that out as soon as you are sitting down at your desk, to have that notion of like, I'm here and I'm ready to work and I'm ready to go. So that you're not just letting the internal software know, but you still have that feeling of like, we're all here together and we are going to make a difference to some customers today. That's one that I saw that I thought was pretty cool. Pranay, have you seen anything?
Yeah, so I'm going to share two stories. One is from within our team, actually. The other one, something I saw on the news recently. So I think just to speak to what you were just saying, one thing we do is we all get on a Zoom call together and we just do our own work, right? So sometimes like the mics are on, the camera might be on, but it just feels like you're working together. Or I've also seen some managers do Zoom office hours where they leave out a Zoom link and anyone can hop on and speak to them if they want to. So I think instead of pre-scheduling a meeting, it's like the Zoom meeting is always on, it's running in the background and you can just unmute, talk to someone. So it does create that kind of cubicle environment where as a small group you are working together even if you're virtual. The external story I wanted to share was obviously about Zappos, a famous company well known for customer service. But I don't know if you saw this in the news, but they basically said we'll support customers about anything. So they said you can call us, ask for anything, we'll try to help you out. So I think a doctor from a hospital called them and said, oh, we need like 300 oximeters to track oxygen levels, and they went out and found it for the hospital, right? So they basically said, just give us a call. We are here to talk to you. It doesn't matter if it's about Zappos or about anything else in the whole world.
Wow, I didn't hear about that, but that's incredible that Zappos is extending their customer service to help the heroes in the medical field who are fighting this right now. Great. This is the last question that we have here. If you have any others, please feel free to submit them in the Q&A. How should we think about adjusting expectations for first contact resolution or issue resolution time, given the increased volume of tickets we're seeing? Great question. I do think that there needs to be, and we do need to adjust expectations, like Pranay was saying in his final piece of advice a couple minutes ago, and realign with customers and remind them that, you know, we too are dealing with this. We are working through a high volume of tickets here. I think there should be some adjustment of priority level, I think is important. Knowing what really should be responded to right away, what can wait a little bit longer. You should really look at your SLAs that you have set up right now and adjust them so that your team doesn't feel so stressed that they have to work through everything, because otherwise, if you have everybody just trying to cram through everything and keep the same level of expectations that you had before, by the time this is over, they're not going to want to be on your team anymore, right? They're going to get burned out. They're going to want to do something else. So you want to keep them through this and support them through all of this by creating an environment where they know that they have a little more flexibility in what they can do. I can't really speak to actual numbers because that depends on you, but I think that just taking a reevaluation of what you consider top priority and lower priority is important right now. What do you think, Pranay?
Yeah, I think I can't comment on the numbers like you say, because each business is different, each kind of customer interaction is different. So you need to make a choice for your business. But I think in terms of how to practically implement this, a few interesting things we've seen is obviously you have announcements on your website, on your help center. Anyone writing into support gets an auto response of saying, here's what our new expectation of response time is, kind of given that we are short staffed, if that's the case. So that's kind of the phase one of the response, which is really like make it extremely visible across all properties and ensure that anyone who's reaching out is first introduced to that message automatically. So I think that ensures that everyone who's looking for support knows what to expect, right? I think some things you can do to manage the workload on your side is something interesting we've done, but I'll again take the airline example. Anyone who's writing in for a refund, right? I'm sure there's a standard response for all the refund tickets. So you can have like a category tag or a ticket type called like COVID related refunds or like COVID related date changes or something of that sort. And you can bulk select all of those and send all of them a response at the same time, right? So instead of answering each person one-on-one, you can combine 20, 30 queries into one response and just send kind of responses at scale so that you are more productive. So I think the first thing that we did when this hit us, and we also have a small business customer base, we expect them to write in for discounts or refunds or things like that. So we created a ticket category called COVID-related kind of pricing, and we made a separate queue just for those kind of inquiries.
Great, that's great advice. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Okay, that is the end of our questions. We will, as I said, we will be sending you an email later with further resources for remote work, and specifically if you responded to one of our polls that you wanted to learn more, you'll get more information from us about that. But if you want to chat about anything else, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or Twitter. It's Yael McCue in all of those places. Thanks again for joining, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.